And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's APAC North, and we are past the halfway mark in this stage. First matchup for this evening is T1 versus Mantis FPS, the ex-Cloud9 crew that are right now #1 in APAC North. Impressive, bouncing back after their abysmal Stage 2, and a pretty strong beginning to the year in Stage 1. Jess, what's the deal with Mantis?
Well, they're neck and neck with Guts at the moment in that top dog spot. They haven't versed each other just yet, and I think my understanding is they're about 3 rounds away from being in that top dog spot with the round differential. So without the head-to-head, our next in line is round diff, and they just falter on that because of some of those close games, losing a few of those rounds. And it puts them in a good position to say that they went from sort of reforming themselves mentally rather than reforming their roster, which is what a lot of other teams did. And they said, well, we're keen to stick together. We can redeem ourselves after a pretty bad stage, and we can come back stronger than ever. They've proved they can do that, and the likes of Charles, etc., are back on their game when they had a rough stage before. So it is a redemption story wholeheartedly for me.
And that's a really good point about reforming themselves mentally.
Yeah.
You'd see a lot of teams, especially I think of EU, Tier 1, Tier 2, where something goes wrong and it's roster changes.
Yep.
Sometimes the roster will just disband.
Yep.
These boys have stuck together.
Yep.
Obviously, they've not got an organisation, but they're playing very well. They're back to their Stage 1 form, and it's really good to see.
Yep.
T1 on the other side, they pushed Faf to the edge in our last Playday and actually scored 4 rounds, 7-4 loss against Cyclops the day before. We don't talk about that stage opening match against Fnatic for many reasons, but it seems like they're always on the cusp of a win somehow, somewhere, but it just never happened.
Yeah, and I kind of mentioned this earlier. They play a really exciting, enjoyable brand of Siege to watch. It's going to give you highs and lows because some of it is not going to work out and they will lose rounds because of it. But they are obviously confirmed for a relegation spot.
Yep.
They are now just trying to play free, whatever they see, whatever they feel like playing, which is why you're going to see interesting operator lineups, interesting map choices. And really, it's somewhat been a bit of a disappointing season or stage so far for 11 because I think we know he's got better than that. But Fancy, for example, coming into the roster, he's really revitalised things as a player that we didn't really know much about, right?
No, I mean, previous coach, now into a player. Speaking about that, there's PJH, who was a caster before and is now a player in that exact roster. You're talking about funky maps, maybe funky lineups, funky operators. PJH takes that a step further and he goes, Vigil, Boschy, ACOG on bank. That's for me. That's what I'm going. And I'm like, hold up, my friend. Not sure that's really going to work, considering the Boschy doesn't have the impact long range it used to. So let's not forget that it doesn't pack the punch it used to, which may be why he had to change back after 2 rounds to the K1A. But it's an exciting roster. They do exciting things. And not only that, 11 is being overshadowed finally.
Yeah, and I think just coming back to PJH, one thing that you are going to see and watch out for this is just how early the engagements happen.
Yes.
Because especially when he's on defense, he's trying C4 spawn peaks, he's trying jump. He jumped out of the bank CO windows on the first round last game. So if we go back there, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
That was awesome.
Which map will we be playing on today? Is it going to be Boss G action again?
You had it clipped as bank, did you?
I had it ready for bank,
And we actually get bank. Villa banned out by Mantis to take us to bank, where they start on the attacking side.
Oh my God.
The meta slowly settling in on bank. We've seen it once here in APAC. This is the second time ever we get to see it. In EU, looks more for the attacking side.
Guess what? It's a revenge match from the Korean Open. They literally have just last week gone head-to-head on this map. It was a 7-5 to T1. There you go, just saying. T1's good on bank. Don't take them there unless you really want to get smacked again. Mantis, however, Korean Open Nationals and Tier 1 play, do you account for them when Korean Open maybe doesn't have the kind of echelon that Japanese League?
For sure.
Okay, sure, let's put it on the back burner for now. T1 is good on this map. It will be exciting, and they've already lost to T1 on this map in the Korean Open. They're out for blood now.
I'm excited.
Oh,
I love watching T1. I love their brand of Siege. And was it T1 starting on defense?
Oh,
I think.
good question.
Was it T1 on defense? I think it was.
Yeah, Mantis attack start.
Yeah, so look for those jump outs, the spawn peaks, the early aggression from PJH. I can't wait.
So who wins?
I believe
T1 won every single defensive round in the Korean Open game.
What?
Against them.
No way.
on the attacker-sided bank.
And Mantis won none of their attacks that I have listed here.
Damn.
It was completely defensive sided.
Wow.
So
if we knew the map, maybe our selection would have been different.
I believe I'm the only one that's gone T1 in the prediction, so I'm going to stick with that.
I will say, for people who don't understand our shock, it's only 47% defensive sided, this map, which means it's quite heavily attacking sided. So they switched that around the Korean Open, and I want that to be switched around today.
Yeah, usually it's like 50 to 55% defense side, and yeah, it is an oddity in this case. But Fresh Jess, thank you very much. It's time for Mantis versus T1. We're going to take it to bank and see who can cash out in this game. We've got Ace and Des to take us through it. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Milos. Welcome to the casting desk for the first game of the day. One of those that you look at as a real Korean grudge match. As said, recently playing this map, T1 walked away the winner. But Mantis are starting to get back in fine form, and the cynic in me says that game the other day is going to be the prep that Mantis need to bring the victory in APAC North today, Tim.
Yeah, I've got a real feeling for them. I mean, we've seen, though, that T1 can put in good performances, not just on Bank, but across a number of maps. The growth is certainly starting to show, and the player that I want to shine a light on today, Des, you know exactly who it's going to be. He's exciting, he's unpredictable, you just never know what PJH is going to do. I want everybody at home to keep their eyes on him, because he can just get wild. We're going to have peaks, you get jump outs, you get Bosch G-ACOG. You just never know what PJH is going to bring, and it is entertainment in its purest form. Now, the bans, they start coming in. T1 taking out Ibana to begin with, stock standard Bank ban.
Very much so. We spoke about this a number of times on the European broadcast. Several hatches on the downstairs, 4 or 5 if you're looking at all of them. To open up means that you need the double hard breach, and Habana being the queen of hatches, that becomes her main focus. Monty going to be the second ban coming out of Mantis as well. The first ban coming out of Mantis, but the second in the match, followed up by the Maestro. So a bit of a step away of what we're used to when we're looking at things like the Valkyrie and the Mirror normally, Tim.
Well, this is it. Only one of those two operators is going to go. My guess would be Valk, but no, neither go. We have a double shield ban. Clash is out. It's interesting because obviously we had Fresh on the telestrator breaking down that T1 attack previously, and there was a clash involved there, so it's factoring into the play here on Bank, and they're going to get rid of it. But that leaves Valkyrie and it leaves Mirror both on the board. We'll see what sort of pick rate we have for the two of them. Valkyrie into the lineup immediately for Arakaze. And just think about this, Des. PJH, Bosch G-ACOG question mark, coupled with
Please, no.
Valkyrie cameras.
I think looking down the line, that this be fair as well, look back at what was banned away on the last day. The Valkyrie was banned away, the Maestro was let through. 11 played it almost exclusively on the defensive side of things in that last game, and maybe that was what attributed to Mantis struggling so much. And on their side, they're saying, you know what? We'd rather deal with something like the Valkyrie around the map than worrying about the Maestro on site. Because as Jess alluded to, there is big transformation needed in this game for Mantis. They start off on the attack, T1 on the defense once again, and let's hope this performance is better than the last.
In the prep phase then, we're going to be going round one straight up to the top floor, which seems to be becoming a pretty popular site. It cuts down for the attackers sometimes the ability to clear out the map, as when we're down in the basement, the attacker's first job is usually come in and clear out those roamers, and it's been a little bit of a struggle for some of the teams, both in EUL and in APAC, where we've seen them on Bank to keep those roamers active and to keep them into the late rounds. So often a lot of teams taking the top floor, where the dynamic's just a little bit different in terms of that first minute and a half for the attackers. But Mantis, they need to get off on the right foot here. They need to come forward with a strong start on attack. We know that T1 are very capable on this map. We know that they're good on the attack. So Mantis, you got to do well in the first 3 or 4 rounds here.
Always keen to see the difference in how teams attack this as well. I mean, looking across the BDS in Europe, normally you'd have a solo player going in through lobby, which is the role that Static is taking here. If it's not going to be an Iana, you're expecting it to be something like a Finca. You'll have one player off on the rappel, which is going to be Harper. In this instance, is normally the hard breacher supporting that main entry player. The rest then tend to look out towards the east or play on windows, depending on the site that we're trying to push into. 11 holding up here at the top side of Banana, looking to just waste a bit of time, but really it's Crazy Boy getting wasted early into the game. game. Static finding him out here just about that 45-second mark.
Perfect start for Mantis there, just getting themselves the advantage. Envy Taylor just able to get up on his window rappel for the time being, put a bit of pressure in towards Square Skylight, but there's nobody really there to play off at the minute. PJH on the vigil all the way down in the basement, and as I said, he's one of those players to just keep an eye on, to watch out for. He doesn't have the Bosch GA Cogdes, he's not brought it along this time. Static, however, is going to be the second one to find, not the second one, he's going to find his second kill. He's going to be on Fancy, taking down the Warden, and that now leaves us 5 versus 3, and Mantis taking themselves a quick advantage here in round number 1.
It feels so atypical as well, like the number of times that I feel us in bank this stage where someone will just walk in from lobby, kill the first man, walk into Teller's Archives and kill another is ludicrous. However, while all that's going on, there are kills elsewhere, and it's Charles getting a 2K of his own up on the top floor. PJH, the last man left alive here on the vigil, has got to find whatever he can. One off on Square, the only man that he's aware of. I believe there's one behind him in Janitor 2, so might find himself flanked any second now. PJH does find one, so no real shutdown coming in as an immediate response, but they know where he is at this point. Nova can make this plank go down here in the 1 versus 3. For PJH does not look good. Charles finding himself 3 in round number 1. Pretty clinical coming out of Mantis, and already bettering their attacking record than last week.
Mantis looked great there. They were just able to section players off, find them, close them down, take them in the 1v1s, and they left T1 players with very little opportunity to fight back. Got to give a shout out to that Shiol 2K pushing into sight as well, particularly that second shot that came through just between the door frame and the shield. It was an absolute peach of a shot to hit at that sort of range. So Shiol really powering his team through the mid-round there, and heading into round 2. T1, they're going to switch things up there, as they're not going up to CEO again. They're going to head the complete opposite, the antithesis. They're going all the way down to the basement. It's going to be lockers and CCTV.
Fun little fact for you, the only attacking round that was won between these two teams last time was on Mantis' defense of the top floor. So T1 started up there in CEO lockers, almost repeating what Mantis did, and well, the outcome has gone the same way. The attackers are the ones walking away the winner. It's almost like that top floor is still horrible to attack into, Tim.
Almost as if. Now then.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. We've got the hatches just being reinforced there. Arakaze bringing along the Tachanka. Now, if you've maybe missed the first half of T1 Siege in Stage 3, do not be alarmed at the Tachanka pick. We've been seeing a lot more of our Lord and Saviour Tachanka being brought along, and it's basically fulfilling the same purpose as Smoke. He's just working on area denial, plant denial. He's doing a very good job of it. He's got 15 canisters in the Schumacher launcher. He's able to put them down and quite literally burn an awful lot of time. It's very difficult to push into, and from here he will just sit deep and fire them into that default plant spot all day long.
And not as dissimilar to Smoke as some may think. BDS and Na'Vi banned Smoke away against Playday on the side of BDS just the other day. What does Playday do? Goes across to playing on the Chanka. Of course, don't forget the primary is the equivalent of a shotgun that you'd have on the Smoke for site transformation, plus the denial, plus a shield. It's not directly the same operator, but very much the same.
It's great that we've now got that direct alternative, because previously a smoke ban was a big thing, whereas now there is that opportunity for smoke players to say, that's fine, I'll bring the Tachanka and I can play in a very similar way.
That's exactly it, yeah. You'll see him playing downstairs here and just looking to spam those Schumachers onto the default plant spot just inside of CCTV. Very used to seeing that wall opened up. And on the sheer basis of there being 3 hard breaches in this round coming out for the side of Mantis, well, the expectation is that you'll see that playing forward. Shiol is already on a tear today, mind you, poking his head around White Stairs and finding himself the entry onto PJH.
Shiol could absolutely be the undoing of T1 today if he carries on like this. And taking out PJH, as I said coming into the game, let's keep an eye on him, because he is one of those players that can be a real difference maker. And shutting him down at the beginning of the rounds like this is brilliant for Mantis, because the best way that I could describe playing against a player like PJH does, it's like playing with a wasp in the room. You can't focus, you can't concentrate whilst
I've seen you around a wasp,
You
mate.
know what I mean? You can't focus whilst it's there. And so taking PJH out is just going to bring a little bit of calm to Mantis, because they know that that unpredictable element is gone. They've got themselves into server, they're established very quickly, they've got the default plant spot open, they're working the hatches. This is great from Mantis so far.
And the thing is now you've got to deal with Arakazio sat inside of lockers. He can waste so much time, so they need the kills. They need to get nades into red, clear the man out, so you can go for a plant against the wall rather than in the default spot. It forces action out of the side of Mantis, which is exactly what T1 are looking for. Let's get up around hatches. Smokes are coming through. Those Shumikers still raining through, but the kills are going to be essential. In comes 11, finds one on the backside of Garage, but Nova's come down. There's kills going back either way into a 3 versus 2, but Harper finds a 2 off back of red. This looks like another commanding round coming out for Mantis, but Crazy Boy, does he live up to his name here in the dying moments of the round? Nova going in for the plant. It's the 1 versus 2. Him and Envy Taylor have got to hold it up here. Drops down through the hatch. They have a rough idea as to where he's coming from, but a post-plant situation, it's not easy to clear with those hatches, unfortunately, Ace.
Absolutely not. Nova steps out round the corner, peeks down the red corridor and finds his man. Takes down Crazy Boy, and Mantis lock out round 2, and they're looking solid so far. T1 really not making too much of an impact on Bank so far. We're going to have to see something different coming out of them, but the question is, what do they do here in terms of sites? They've tried the top floor, they've tried the bottom, they've gone all the way from the top to the bottom and still not been able to lock it out. They're going to head back up to the top floor, but unsurprisingly, Des, I think there was a little bit of indecision about the site there. We saw initially it go to Archives and Tellers. Bit of a discussion, it's changed over to the top floor. So now T1 just seem to be in that position where they're thinking, what do we do here? Where do we go? Where can we lock this down? And given the last 2 rounds, I don't think it's really too much about the site. It's about winning those gunfights. Harper able to get in, get himself a nice 2k there, opened up the round. Shayol did exactly the same in round 1. T1, you got to start winning some gunfights. I'm looking at PJH and I'm saying, get out on the roam. We need to see that unpredictability brought to bear. You can't be getting shut down so quickly.
Yeah, it's not like the end of the world looking at it either. You know, 5 kills across the 2 rounds. If you're looking at some teams who have got 1 or 2 after 2 rounds and it is an absolute whitewash, then yeah, different conversation to be having. There's a level of competition. It's just yet not high enough to stop Mantis, who, you know, throughout the stage, we have seen a very different team compared to what we saw at, say, SI, the team that we saw back in stage 2, who, you know, they were very much falling off the rails as the way that we described it. And maybe in part that was due to their situation with Cloud9, but now it feels things have settled a little bit. You're starting to see getting back to that old form and hitting some nasty shots. All that layered in with players like Nova having a brilliant last 12 months or so. For my money, one of the most improved players, I think, in APAC. I've loved watching him play. They're starting to get back to that old form. The question is, can you do it, you know, keep it and maintain it across the stage ahead of the major in November?
PJ's just taking up a typically aggressive approach there, looking on towards those square skylight windows. It's high risk, high reward. If he gets spotted out there, should be an easy kill through the barricades. But he's going to move on before that can happen. Now, we get a great view there of the buff that we had to IQ Des. We can see her just pinging out those gadgets. It just makes her not more viable. IQ was always a very viable op, but obviously one of the factors was that she can see these gadgets but couldn't really impact on them too much. And she still can't. She can't directly impact on them herself necessarily, unless shooting through a soft surface. But being able to ping it out in that way just gives the team that little bit of extra direct information. You couldn't hit them with a yellow ping previously. It was all down to verbal comms. So a little bit of a struggle coming in nonetheless, but still working on those gadgets. No kill, which is better for T1 here. They've managed to survive longer than the previous 2 rounds.
Yeah, it's a start for them for sure, but this is where the pressure really starts mounting up. At this point, they should know that Crazy Boy is sat inside of the elevator and his angle of retreat is cut. Harper the one holding off on the window, but really the aim here is to waste as much time as you can. And there's your man finally getting started here. Ace PJH with the opener onto Shyle, a reverse to what we saw in the previous round.
Exactly what T1 needed from him there. Get aggressive, get out there, find that kill, and make yourself useful. Oh, he just turns away at the wrong second, getting challenged from the square windows. This is good from Mantis. They created a very difficult situation for PJH, and we witnessed it, Des. We felt like we were in his shoes there. The pressure comes in. He's got the challenge onto Tellers and Archives. He knows there's a man pushing from that direction, takes his shots, but has to turn his attention to the second man, and ultimately it was his undoing. Now Crazy Boy, he may be stuck in the elevator, Des, but is he stuck in there? Are they stuck in with him as he manages to find a kill? But it is traded out by Harper. 2 versus 3 now for Mantis, and they've got some serious work to do here. They've got Envy Taylor out on the rappel, so no boots on the ground. Static tries to push in, but Arakaze able to just jump up from behind the shield, and this is surely all over now as Arakaze, he's poised, ready to step out, but he doesn't need to, as Fanksy finds that kill, and T1 take their first round here on Bank, and let's hope that settles things down for them.
Much better round, yeah. They were the ones that were a step ahead of Mantis in that round. You know, look down to the opening kill. It took about 15 seconds for Mantis to come through with the trade back. It was a really good pinch coming out. But then as soon as that action's completed, they're trying to push into elevator with one person, getting them picked off. A trade comes through afterwards. Then you get Harper getting swung out from Banana. There's just constant responses coming out of both sides, which is great to see. But as said, T1 were always slightly one step ahead. They are going to try things back down in basement, which is quite a difference to what we're used to seeing, I think, in Europe and across a number of other teams in APAC North here, Tim. Many really like him playing on open area and staff, and that's simply not the case between these two teams, at least.
No, T1 avoiding it for the time being. I think now that they've got the first round on the board, they're willing to give this bottom floor a try again. We've just got the T1 skin flashing up at the bottom there. Absolute beauty with that artwork down the side. The share scheme skins are certainly worth a look if you haven't seen them yet, because there are some absolute beauties in there. We get the guts just flashing up as well.
Drain my wallet so far,
honestly. Sure. And the thing is, Des, I've absolutely no problem with it. I've no problem with it because the value is wonderful. They're absolutely beautiful skins this time around. All the teams really pulling out all the stops. So make sure to check those out. Now, coming into round 4, we're heading in towards the action phase. We've got our downstairs set up. PJH managed to open things up with a kill last time. It was a good entry for T1. He was shut down shortly after that, but they need more of the same from him. He's on the Mozzie again, and he's currently on the down floor, but I'd expect him to get himself out on the roam once he's done that utility.
Yeah, it'd be much the same setup before as well. You'll have Arakaze sat back in lockers, just spamming those Shumikers over to where the default plant spot would be. But imagine here there'll be some focus. Okay, now that's...
Not good. Not good.
No, that's... Yeah. Trying to get out on the roam to cause a little bit of trouble, and Charles was just prepared for him there. Even I imagine not seeing the traps coming up because he came up white stairs and immediately pushed in. That was just one of those swing fights that you have early in the round that PJH was trying to catch him by surprise, but Charles was just better.
Certainly is, and he just equips that Inox gadget. He's going to take the scan now. It will only be the Tachanka of Arakaze, and that's something that you can do if you know you're likely going to be playing against the Jackal. Something you can possibly take to your rank games even is, if you know you've got a player who's going to be playing on site, like the Tachanka, send them to get the hatches. Because then when their footprints get scanned, it doesn't really give any information. Guess what? You could have asked Mantis where the Tachanka was playing, and they'd have told you where he was playing. He's playing in lockers. So it gives them absolutely nothing. If you send your roamers out to get those hatches, it can be deadly.
The strength of the Jackal, I think, on this map especially is really going to shine, which is somewhat containing T1 down in the basement. They're aware this Jackal has been brought along every single round so far, so you are always at a risk, which again is why I commend PJH for saying, look, I'm not going to go and sit in a corner, they'll trap me down. At the very least, I can swing and try and make something happen. And I imagine that's why you're now seeing 11 and Crazy Boy just sat around the site, not wanting to be too problematic about things, playing things a little bit safer. You can see once again how the focus is looking to be server side, and already those Shumikers are starting to rain through. They're almost suspecting as well for a push to come in through the garage in the late round. We've seen Gorgona from Kavana make excellent use of that to disrupt teams with the final 20-30 seconds or so still to play. So good presence of mind coming out of T1, but here comes the drop and plan.
Immediately Nova straight in, absolutely no messing about there. The Shumiker launch has just been deployed, but he does not manage to get the plant down. That's great play from Arakaze to prevent it, but Harper once again, he went big last time. Des finds himself a triple in the basement now as Nova gets shut down in the midst of that with a nitro, but it's not going to matter because Mantis, they just go in and absolutely dismantle T1 in the basement.
And even with the small changes coming in, you know, the short falling of the Shumikers onto that default plant spot. Well, not really default, the second default plant spot, you might call it, against the wall. The C4s through smoke, everything. Harper is still doing wonders. It was a 2K on the last attack of this site. And so far, to have 3 attacking rounds on the side of Mantis, far and away from what we saw of that 7-5 victory for T1 over them in the previous fixture. Mantis looking good, looking coordinated. They are making sure these roamers cannot have any impact. And when it comes to the executes, they are quite plain and simply just better than T1 right now.
Mantis are back, Des. Mantis are back. I think we're getting to that point where we can start sort of declaring that and saying this is a very different performance. This is very different to what we saw out of the former Cloud9 roster at SI in Stage 2. Whatever was going on seems to have been just locked down, sorted out. They're comfortable again, and they are showing us some of their best, and they're certainly on the road back if they're not there already.
It's funny because I was going to say, well, look back at who they've beat. You know, does it suggest they are back? They've beaten Damwon Kia 7-1. They beat Cyclops on day one.
Two of the top teams.
I was having this debate with Fresh earlier on where I was saying, for my money, relative to their previous level of performance, Cyclops are the worst performing
they've
team
dropped off a cliff
right now. They've disappeared, and we don't know why, because they've just gone 14-0 in the Japanese league. It's insane how different they can be in different competitions that we're still waiting to see if that's going to get worked out in time for their game later on today. But the next two games Mantis have got, Fnatic and Guts. They are the two big ones left before them. If they beat those two teams and best them, only Fav standing their way on the last Playday. This could be a top spot finish for Mantis if this carries on, which is the scariest part.
That's it. It could be back to their Stage 1 best, and we'll know as it progresses. But progressing now is round number 5, where we're going to be in Archives and Tellers. T1 finally deciding to take one of those mid-floor sites and try to mix things up. Obviously not confident in going back to basement, and that's no surprise at all given the way that round 2 and round 4 have gone, and they've been heavily sided, heavily favouring Mantis, who have shown a real mastery in attacking onto that bottom floor site. Now Shiol just creeping his way down the stairs there. I think he knows that it looks like it's going to be PJH ahead of him. If I didn't know, it's Arakaze, in fact, just on the Oryx inside of the elevator.
He's not scanning him. He doesn't want to spook him and make him run. He's like, you just stay there. This is fine. They can see him as well. Oh, this drop.
It's a freebie. It's a freebie. It's a freebie.
Oh, Arakaze! What a shot onto Nova as well. Heard the man drop and was immediately able to respond. Shiol, here comes a new challenger. It's another fight in the Death Dome here with someone else coming up main stairs. He's got the support from the Melusa here, unless they're aware of that. This could be a real sting coming back, and he drops through the hatch. Beautifully played by PJH, and Mantis, they let him slip through their fingertips.
Shiol, it's time to use that scan so that you can just recognise the fact that Arakaze has moved himself, that he's getting himself back up the main stairs, and it's only a small change of angle, but it could be a crucial one, and there we go. The Inox scan does come in, and that is going to ping him out now. What a shot from Shiol, and a second shuts down the Oryx now. The damage done by Arakaze onto Nova in the early round, but Mantis still come away ultimately 4v3 and ahead of things. PJH, he's roaming round frantically in the basement. He needs to pop up somewhere and have a big impact soon, because with a minute left to go, the pressure is starting to mount.
Last year, the focus on the duo of the year really was MV Taylor and Shiol. They were lights out, arguably the best performing duo that we had in APAC North. And then Shiol disappeared. Zofia, like, doesn't matter what he brought along, Zofia was his go-to operator, didn't play it well. He even drew Zofia bans and drops 9 kills in 3 rounds on a Blackbeard. That's the kind of player that he is. He's 8-2 in this game so far, and even in that situation where he's pinned in, blocked off by the castle barricades, still finds 2 incredible shots. All that said, PJH has made a bit of a nuisance of himself in the round in general, found 2 of his own, but Shiol still stands. Static going to find himself going down. It's a 2 versus 2 ace, only 15 seconds still to play, and the other members of Mantis now need to make this happen. The spray through the wall, but he finds Harper on the soft spray through. One more coming through, but Shiol onto the 3k in the round. Can he hunt down his nemesis in PJH, who's off around the map? His man is down. He's got to make something happen, which he won't be able to do. Doesn't have the diffuser. And PJH holds out long enough, despite the Shiol 3k, to give another round to T1.
I'm not sure about the run towards his teammate there. There was obviously no opportunity to pick him up. He, I think, was maybe acting off a bit of information that the last man was possibly inside of open and he was looking for the kills, but the diffuser was in reach for him, Des. It was only 6-7 metres away, and you've got to look and think there was possibly an opportunity. Obviously, you can get closed down while you're going for that last second plant, but
that's it.
If you don't go for it, you certainly lose the round. It's a difficult one. I'm not criticising, I'm certainly not, but there was a difficult situation for the last man alive there, just to try and choose which was the better option, to extend that clock or to try and find that 1v1 fight. But T1 doing well there to keep themselves out of danger, and just remembering that the clock can win the round as well as the gun can. So T1 take their second round, they bring it back to 2-3 on the scoreboard, and they're going to try to lock down that top floor again.
Let's see how things change up here as well. Absolutely. This is the one that I look at and think, okay, then time to do something a little bit spicy maybe. You know, we've seen it won once, lost once so far. The second attempt at the defense, much better coming out of T1. but now you've got to deal with the adaptations that will no doubt come out of Mantis. And here are those two magical shots that came out of Charles as well. The first one comes in, and the second one, a new challenger steps up the main stairs. Did have the ping on him, to be fair, and was just ready for it. It's an easy second kill coming in. 2 headshots
Crosshair
as well.
placement, though.
That
Crosshair
is
placement. Just absolutely ready at that head height. And that's something, again, if you want to improve your own game, something you can really practice. Where is roughly at different distances, because obviously it changes based on perspective, but where is that crouch head height? Where is that standing head height? And if you can get used to playing in and around there, just maybe slightly below it, so your first couple of recoil bounces take you up onto the head, you are looking at definitely improving your kills. And that was absolutely beautiful. PJH is down super early, Des. Mantis are prepared for him. That's all I'm going to say, because PJH is, coming into this, I said how effective. That's big, though, from Arakaze. Manages to get the opener onto Envitalia, and that's likely to allow him to pick up PJH as well. So Arakaze coming in absolutely clutch for his team in the early round there.
Even all that said, it does feel like Charles has had his number throughout this first half. Even if it doesn't become a confirmed kill, it's still in one shot from death. And Crazy Boy, lucky to be alive there, losing 40 hit points of his own to Static out on the front lobby. Harper finds Fanxy, so another kind of balancing act coming out here, all inside the first 60 seconds. This gives a good bit of control here, I think, for the side of Mantis 2. Now looking to push Crazy Boy out of those elevators. It's where he has played throughout the vast majority of this game. We've already seen him challenge once, and he did win out the first kill. Was traded after, only for 11 to swing and kill Harper on the trade back. So a war around this area around elevators, we're very used to seeing between these two teams, Ace.
Your eyes do not deceive you if you're taking a look at PJH's health bar and wondering what's going on. He's taken himself a little trip through a few corner stations there, and despite being downed, he's got his healing, he's juiced himself back up, and he is back at absolute full strength for the fight. And if he has a big impact on this round, Des, what a better example of the power of Thunderbird potentially. We'll see how he does through the remainder. Now Nova still being held up by Crazy Boy in those elevators. He's got his nades out, he's ready to make an attempt at clearing him here, but going to take something pretty special from this angle. In it goes, and special it is. What an absolute beauty, and what a view we get of it from our superstar observer. Easy just picking that up absolutely beautifully. 11 manages to get the kill onto Shiol, and T1, they still have the advantage here. PJH, what did I say, Des? He managed to get himself juiced back up. He comes out and has a big impact here, taking Nova and leaving us in a 3 versus 1.
I mean, for Static here, it's got to be something special. Instead, it's going to be a special 11 3K to close out the half. The 3K for him, the 3 rounds for either side. I'd still say that comes out as a pretty good half for Mantis, given how it played out last time. 3 rounds in total, a couple of good rounds coming out of T1, but for the most part, under the thumb of Mantis, especially Charles, who constantly had PJH challenged in those early spawn peaks or early aggressive moments. Let's see how things work out on the flip side. Tellers and Archive's going to be where we start, so a better difference to what we saw the strategy coming out the side of T1 earlier on.
I'd absolutely agree with you. I think the rounds that Mantis have won for me have felt a little bit more convincing. I will take that back for round 6. I think T1 were in control of that. I think some of the other rounds that they've won, it's sort of still come down towards the end of the round, and Mantis have been very competitive. I think the best way that I can put it is Mantis have been more competitive in the rounds they've lost than T1 have been competitive in the rounds that they've lost. So I still feel like I give an edge to Mantis here. But this first defense is going to be particularly important for them. Interestingly, they're going to be going to Tellers and Archives to start us off with. They're not taking the top or bottom floor. We're going straight into mid, and they're going to try to lock down the site that T1, they were able to secure themselves as well. So, Mantis, every opportunity.
We saw 11 playing a ton of Twitch last week as well, and the man knows how to play that jumping game. Holy hell. Trick shotting in the air, jump up, zap summit, drone comes back down again, fade away. It's absolutely beautiful. But look at the change in lineup compared to what you saw back in the first half, right? We had Buck, we had Jackal, we had Maverick in a good number of those rounds. Already here, a massive change. The Heartbreak gadget being brought along on the Capital, and the Zero kind of serves as a, if there's a hatch to open, we've got the option in which doing so. We've also got the wall opening capability with the Ace, but otherwise it's basically a completely different lineup, relying on the smokes coming out of both the Capital and the Twitch there to look for things like the Execute. So a similar kind of play style, but very, very different operator lineup, Tim, and I love seeing the Zero more and more every time it gets brought along.
Absolutely. Now then, Fancy just holding that angle straight away into lobby, trying to catch off anybody on a rotate. PJ straight up to the roof with the 0 Sam cams just to try and feed that information in. Interestingly placed cam there. It's going to be a good one. Looking straight into sight. It's just going to give a potential ton of information there. Now, 11, we said the Twitch drone's very capable with them, but shut down there. That's going to be a good
Oh, no.
burning of the utility coming in from Mantis. So they're just going to protect particularly those mirror windows, of course. The Twitch drone able to shoot those out, and they could be particularly effective as part of this defence.
Or he just kind of walks over this drone towards lobby like, meant to do that. He's getting off the window ripple anyway, just thought I'd do it for fun. So now he's rotated his way around to this lobby, I think, to try and apply some pressure up towards where they thought someone was in elevator, but members of Mantis have already bat long away, so not wanting to get themselves stuck in too long. They do have a Valkyrie camera inside a lobby. I'm not sure if it's been dealt with, so they'll see these 2 or 3 players potentially pushing on their way through. There's no one currently cycling cams for the defenders. In fact, as I say that, Nova did just hop on it, Harper as well, so looking to collect what's going on. As soon as they realise there are 4 players coming in from lobby, that could be an indication to rotate some utility over, or look to try and set up more players on this side of the map. It is 11 up on the top side, so once they've got this vertical control, that's when they can start thinking about the downstairs. The main thing, this is the camera I was on about, this is what makes me a bit nervous though, is T1 historically have been very slow on the attack. They're still looking for the top floor control here. They've still got to deal with things like the C4s, and they're even committing smokes on the top floor, despite, you know, there's one player inside of Janitor to try and cut the angle. Can they see the head? No, they can't. It's Envy Taylor going in first onto 11.
Great opening kill there, and as you say, that Valkyrie cam placed in main lobby from Nova, it makes me a little bit concerned as one after another die into Envy here as they try to push in. Static finds Arakaze, but you've got to remember throughout this round, Mantis have been completely aware of the location of almost everybody on T1 as they try to push up those spiral stairs. By not picking up on that Valkyrie cam, it is just feeding back a ton of information, and we see exactly why they are so powerful. They're even now using it to ping out the Sam cams for Nova to be able to take that down. They're using the Valkyrie cams to deny information as well as gain it, and that is just super powerful use of that coming in from Mantis. And what a first defensive round. It's going to be over here. Fanxy's up on the roof just trying to find anything that he can. He's going to put a couple of shots into Envy Taylor, but that's going to be about as good as it gets before he gets shut down, and that is Mantis super convincing in their first defensive round.
I kind of hate harking back and using it as an example, but step back into last week when we saw Fav coming up against T1 on this map. The big takeaway I had from that was that T1 got stuck on attacks a lot of the times where they weren't quite sure of, okay, what's the next move? How do we step forward from here? There's a couple of spicy rounds in the mix. We saw things like Monty rushes being brought out, for example, just to try and make something happen, but it was never really convincing on the attack from T1. And I feel that's almost the one area of their game they still haven't yet fully figured out. The defense of players like PJH, 11, they can make magic happen, as we've seen many times. Arakaze playing things like Wilmai, brilliant player on the operator too. It's just the attacks that currently seem to be falling short. So although it's a too little, too late piece to start working on for them now, that's the one thing I do really want to see improve for them is let's get these attacks nailed down. You come into bank a couple of times, you know it's a map you like playing. Let's see some good attacks that show it's worth being one of those priority picks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to have Ella on the side of Mantis here. We'll see if that goes towards possibly a bit of a blue stairs hold. That would be the classic position for Ella here on a basement hold, although since we've had bank reintroduced, the blue stairs has just dipped away from popularity a little bit. We did see it initially. Teams immediately, that's how historically we've defended that area, so that's what we're going to do. But we have seen a little bit less of it. But with the shotgun in hand, it certainly could be the case here. So keep an eye on Harper. It can always be a difficult location to clear out. It has got a little bit easier with the introduction of some of the new attackers since we last had bank in the map pool. But given the lineup of T1, I would say it still wouldn't be an easy position to clear out because they don't have a lot of frag grenades. They don't have a lot of utility to clear that position. But it doesn't look like Mantis are going to be playing there.
I mean, without a Jaeger, without a Wamai, it's very, very risky to try and do so, right? You can sit in there all you like, but one frag would be enough to clear that out, or a Capital holding the hatch and burning out the bottom of stairs. Either way you look at it, damned no matter where you stand on those blue stairs. So I think pulling back would be the smart idea. And we've seen this out of Empire already. There's kind of two defenses that you often see in the downstairs of basement, of bank at the minute, sorry. One where you do hold up on the blue stairs, the less common one. I'd say 80% of the time you're seeing things instead like holding inside of red and looking to play Denal instead. speaking of denial, Fanxy being denied a chance of even getting involved in this round. The Capital, with all that useful utility already taken off the board.
Absolutely destroyed. Envy Taylor starting the round the same way as he ended the last with a kill. And
Just
another one coming in there onto 11. And that is not a good start for T1. The IQ gone as well. There's important utility lost. The one thing they've still got going for them is at least the hard breach is still in place. Ace using those Selma charges to try and assist in clearing out roamers, but this is the problem that T1 have got now. With only 3 men left, they really can't commit any more bodies to the top floor. If they lose anybody up there, it is just absolutely catastrophic. They need these 3 players to be assaulting onto site. They take a big risk in pushing Arakaze up the spiral stairs to the top floor, and it does pay off as he finds the kill onto Static, but look at his health. Arakaze really cannot be taking any more engagements as it stands at the minute. PJH is creeping through. He might just find Envy Taylor here, Des.
Well, you've got the duo of Charlotte and Envy Taylor both on the ground floor still, and Envy Taylor is causing trouble. Turns round, sees the man, puts him down the diffuser. We've seen this one many times, Tim. Now going to be sat on here. They've got the vertical control if they need a bit of support coming in from Charlotte as well. Just so much that can work in their favour. And for T1, again, that clock will bleed down. They're already in the 2 versus 4. It's not looking good.
And this is it's a perfect example of what I was saying, Des. In a 3 versus 4, you start having to take risks. And a risk is sending PJH as Thermite with the diffuser into clear roamers, because that's exactly what's going to happen. You know, ideally, in that sort of situation where you've only got 2 or 3 players left, you need to start thinking about pushing onto site. How can we get onto that plant spot? It's difficult. I'm not saying it's directly an option. Sometimes you have to take the risk because you have to find the kills to allow you to push towards site, but it's just the level of risk that you have to take escalates exponentially as people start dying, and this is definitely a Mantis round as Nova steps up. He's just ready and waiting there with the shotgun. There you go, steps through. Nice easy kill for him and a great round for Mantis, but big risk there. PJH pushing in and putting that diffuser down in no man's land.
And it's another big multi-round kill, or multi-kill round, sorry, coming out of Envy. It was 3 in round 7, 4 in round 8. You kind of feel like we're building up slowly towards an ace, which that could have been if Nova hadn't gone aggressive onto the elevator. But only 1 kill across 2 rounds for T1, and I think, understandably, we are going to see a tactical timeout come through, because this is not looking good. And it seems to be, again, the trend that is haunting these boys. Attacks just do not look good for T1.
No, not at all. And I think the thing is, they start... For me, I've picked up on PJH, and I don't want to be too critical. I'm not going to be. But we've seen that a couple of times where that diffuser goes down on the ground in odd locations. And I just don't know if playing hard support diffuser carrier really fits into what PJH does as a player. You know, on defense, we've spoken and we've given him plaudits about how well he plays that unpredictable role. He gets out on the roam, he makes a nuisance of himself, he takes gunfights, and that's fantastic. But it doesn't really work when you're a hard breach with the diffuser in hand, and going in looking for those gunfights, looking for those engagements is going to leave you in those difficult situations. So I don't know if maybe the composition on attack is really as good as it could be. I don't know. You know, if PJH may be better elsewhere.
You've snagged the point away from me there. I was going to talk about this attacking lineup. Look again at what Mantis brought in every single round in the first half, because they know how much of a nightmare Bank can be with its 3 staircases. Roam play, really strong coming out the side of Mantis. What did they do on the attacking side? They bought the Jackal. That's what needs to come through in this round, and there it is on the 6th pick away from the Capital across to the Jackal. This is so necessary. They were relying on the 0 to get it done for them. That was not enough. It's great if they're trying to flank you, but the problem is these roamers on the 2nd floor would have sat there like, well, I'll let them come to me, I guess, and pick up freebie kills because they aren't droning me. Good change coming in, and I'm glad they've used the tactical timeout to realise that.
There's a bit of me, Des, and, you know, I'm sure Fanxy will do a great job here, but there's a bit of me that's thinking, should it be PJH playing the Jackal and give the diffuser to somebody else? Because it's like one of those you know, where they do like inside the mind of a killer, inside the mind of a roamer. You know, if you want to pick up on an unpredictable roamer, if you want to get somebody who's going to second guess those positions, give it to PJH, because that's what he does. You know, he can be up there thinking, where would I play this? Where would I be popping out of? You know, where would I be? What would I be doing on the roam? And I'm sure sure that information could be valuable to them. And like I said, I just don't know. I think, you know, maybe think about just shifting that diffuser onto somebody else. Crazy Boy as your hard breacher. Give it to him. He's playing it safe. His survival's going to be good, and he's going to get it delivered into sight rather than down at the feet of 2 defenders, which is not where you want.
It is a really interesting dice up for T1 between their attacking and defensive half.
This is a rush. This is a rush.
And in they come. One comes through the backside as well. We spoke about this last week as well with the Monty push in, but it's the slaughter. It's a meat grinder coming out for Mantis. 3 kills fly through. PJH finds one back into shot, make it a second. But can he find a third to balance the books here, or are they going to stay in red? Because it looks to be red strewn all over the floor. Pushing they may try and do with a good 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go with, so they can slow this down. I'm glad to see it's coming out. Crazy Boy finds another with full control of the room. The plant is going down, but can the flank come through in time? The answer appears to be no. This one should get stuck out. It's going to have to be a retake coming in from the side of Mantis. 40 seconds on the clock, boys, and you've got to find these final 2 kills.
Certainly do. Static, he's going to be left all alone as MB Taylor gets shut down. He's trying to find his angle.
Wow.
No, PJH locks it down with a long headshot. And thank you, PJH, as I come in questioning him carrying the diffuser. He gets it down on the ground, but I think my point ultimately still stands. We'll see how he goes over the next couple of rounds. A great round from T1 there to just really put some energy into this game after that tactical timeout, and that's a bit of a jab to the nose of Mantis there. That's going to stun them a little bit.
The scary thing is, and you can't really put it down to this because the rush really destabilised that whole round, but the opening 3 kills all went the way of Mantis. It was down to a 5 versus 2. There were a couple of players left, of course, on the side of T1 that had control of open area, but that was it. And I think, understandably, Mantis were like, okay, well, they've got control of sight. We don't want a plant to go down here. We need to fight our way forwards. And try as they might, PJH just steps up with the massive 4K to answer envies in the previous round. It's good, but cheese only works so many times before it starts to go off. And I'm wondering in this round now if you're going back to a more stable sort of play where Mantis might be a bit more aware of the potential of things like that. What is it they're going to do? And I can see you being incredibly excited today. You've got a glee on your face like a 3-year-old kid that's just walked into a candy store. You're seeing PJH.
We're almost there.
You see PJH on the Jackal.
Get rid of the diffuser. Please, PJ, get rid of the diffuser.
I never thought I'd hear you say, please get rid of the diffuser.
Give it to me. Give it to Crazy Boy. Give it to anybody. Please get rid of the diffuser. Don't take the diffuser on a roam hunt with you. But I'm glad to see PJH on the Jackal. Like I say, I just feel like he's got that mindset where he could make himself a nightmare for those roamers because he could just be one step ahead of them. And we'll see how he goes this time around. Hopefully we don't see that diffuser dropped in no man's land if he goes in and loses out on a challenge now. He's going to be going straight towards that square skylight, so they're looking for that top floor clearance. Of course, attacking onto Archives and Tellers this time around. Mantis deciding to go back to what was their site of first choice in round 7. Defensively speaking, they were pretty comfortable there, and as you said, as a rush is not going to cut it this time. So the question now is, can T1 get a win on the board in a normal attack? Quote-unquote normal.
I'm sure you want to say yes purely because he's the one playing on the Jackal here to give you that. I think that's a good pick for them to bring. I don't really know if it needs to be PJH as long as he's given the ability to go aggressive and take those kills, as you say.
Yeah.
You've got 11 already playing on the Twitch, but I think Twitch these days, you know, before it used to be, Ash Twitch main, just rush in, F2, get people down. It's not really the way anymore, and sure, 11's giving away a freebie. Look, people make mistakes, Ace, sometimes. It's okay.
He was just rushing ahead of himself there. You know, generally, players at this level should be picking up on that Mozzie sound cue to know that the pest is ahead of them and really shouldn't be driving into it that freely, especially with important utility like that Twitch drone. You know, that's in control of the Mozzie now. If they've not been able to get in and shoot it out, there you go, Shayo shutting down Arakaze from behind the shield. I think that was the second Twitch drone going as well, so they're now limited in ability to take gadgets down. Challenge onto the stock window. Shayo makes an investment with a headshot onto 11.
Static finds one back as well, but we've been here before, Ace, in the 5 versus 2, but this time the clutch master PJH is gone. Envy shuts him down. This is looking to be another fantastic round coming out of Mantis. You look at the rounds they've won. If this one closes out here and now, there will have only have been 2 kills from T1 in those rounds that they have walked away the loser in the attacking half. Fanxy got to make something happen here, but gets shut out by Static. It's going to be a flawless round. And my God, Mantis are flying.
I mean, that's a bit of a response to a rush plant, isn't it? Come back and just absolutely wipe the floor with T1 there in round 10 as Mantis get themselves onto match point. Where is going to be the location of what could be their final defense? They're going to be heading down to the basement, Des, but it looks like Mantis are just going to take a little tactical time out, try to slow things down a bit and have a chat before they go back to the bottom floor. They did win it previously back in round 8. They were able to lock it down, but obviously deciding that there's just something that they need to be smoothing out here.
Absolutely. I think you have the chat here and just make sure you definitely close this out here and now. The last thing you want is to give T1 the beans to make a comeback because as of yet, they have not won, as you put it earlier on, air quotes, a normal round. They've won a rush round. And outside of that, I lied when I said 2 kills. They've had 1 kill. Because we had the round 7 complete and utter wipeout coming out of the side of Mantis. We had the 1 kill coming in the following round, the rush round, and then a flawless rounder stepping in. It has been rough for T1 in this half, and I don't want to say it's so much like you're giving them a massive advantage here by giving T1 time to have a conversation, but unfortunately PJH on the Jackal wasn't the right answer. Surely there is something else in the backpack that they need to be drawing out here now and wielding, otherwise this game is done.
Exactly that. I mean, it was the aggressive push, really. Pushing forward, Arakaza just trying to challenge onto that shield. You're always on a loser. They've got little windows in them. And the Jaeger could see that that is exactly what was happening and was able to step up and get that big opener that really powered Mantis through then, and kills just rained in one after another. And I think ultimately, one of the differences, again, just does come down to those gunfights. People like Shiol just winning out that fight on the stock window. Not an easy fight, very 50-50, but more of them seem to just be falling towards the side of Mantis when it does come down to that. So we're going to head into what could potentially be our final round here. We've seen 10 so far, and Mantis sit in the lead 6-4 at the moment, and they look good for it, Des. They've looked pretty convincing of the two of these teams at the minute. I would say that Mantis certainly deserve their lead, and T1, they're going to have to find a way very quickly to get this basement locked down. If they don't, there's no more room for mistakes here. Mantis, they'll take the full 3 points, and their march back to the top of the APAC North table will continue.
And then it's kind of like coming up against a gym boss if you're playing old certain games involving pocket monsters. Well, you're about to come up against the gym bosses now as well. The next 2 games, as mentioned, are against the big boys, Fnatic and Guts. You do the win over those 2, you're basically guaranteed to be in top coming into the final Playday. It will be beautiful and a biblical comeback for the side of Mantis. One thing I do want to touch on, by the way, we are very used to a very grenade-heavy meta in Europe. Here, very few nades being brought, and we've only seen anti-nade utility brought along 3 times, despite Wamai being available. We saw Jaeger in rounds 2, 4, and 7. That has been it. These teams just not really bothered by nade play, it turns out, Ace.
Not massively, and of course, Jess touched on the win rate of Wamai being particularly low as well in APAC North. So, again, not an operator that's particularly popular.
That's because Arakazi plays it a lot on the news a lot.
I mean, as you say, just not really being forced towards it without those large numbers of throwable, particularly explosive utility being brought along. We've seen 1 kill today on the nade onto Crazy Boy in the elevator. It was an absolute beauty of a throw, but it's about the maximum use that we've seen for them, really. When we're seeing players pop out from behind shields and get kills, Envy, he knows he's going to get drawn, though. He's going to have to dip away from that challenge, so he won't be able to take the man on the rappel for the time being. Look at that long shot. He almost hits it. Arakaze just taking a little bit of damage there, but Envy taking more.
He's really keen to have a fight around this as well. I imagine
he wants it.
Yeah, he's not the kind of man I think that's going to fall fully back here as well, unless they start to suspect there is some pressure coming in. Just checking around square, has the support from Harper as well as Static holding at the top of his hatch. So rather than relying on T1 to open it up, they've opened it themselves and looked to play around it. But I do want to draw attention, Ace, to the number of drones left. They have got 1 drone left with 90 seconds in the round, 2 if you include the shock drone, but they have done a brilliant job at removing all of the info game away from T1, which gives you a good reason for why their attacks look so slow.
Absolutely.
They've got no confidence moving forwards because they can't see what's in front of them.
Yep, as you say, they're just going into every gunfight blind here. They're just having to peek everything and see what they can find, and Static, he's the one to find the opener onto PJH again, shutting the man down, and Des, that leaves the diffuser down in open ground somewhere once again, needing to be collected by T1. Time is ticking away right now. The diffuser's down on the top floor. This is a basement attack. Static finds Crazy Boy, and surely this race is run, Des. Mantis, they've got the run of things now as they're looking to pounce. They're looking to finish this off, and it is clinical from them, and it's what I love to see. They are are in charge of this final round.
Large and in charge at the top of the leaderboard is the only way to describe Mantis after this game. The roam game has been beautiful. T1 crumbling under the pressure of it, as other teams have abused in the past. Great shot onto Charles, though, as he was laid down there watching his spot. But the problem for T1 is they've got 15 seconds on the clock. They've taken 2.5 minutes to clear both floors and are now starting to look for their execute, and they just can't get anything in. Nade's coming through, trying to connect onto what they can. Droppy comes, Envy Taylor's there waiting. This is going to be a shutout with Fanxy and 11 left alive. The 1v3, easy close out for Mantis. They take the 7-4 victory and really do establish themselves at the top of the APAC North table.
It's a difficult one because you want to get excited about this Mantis side, and you should be excited about this Mantis side because they've come in, and as I always say, you can only beat the team in front of you, Des, and boy have they done that today. T1 putting up a reasonable performance, but you've always got that question in the back of your mind. Did T1 deliver enough of a challenge there for us to get really excited about Mantis? And I'm not sure that they did.
This is the thing, right? And what I will give to them, this is a very subtle kind of advantages game because they controlled PJH excellently. Their own game, great, destroying all of the utility and information away from them, just really starving T1 of any resource or opportunity to do anything. It was a very stifling game, and that's what I love seeing because although it's not very, I suppose, immediately obvious, it does show that kind of capability to adapt to your opponent, to be able to plan for them, and to do it to a really high level.
Absolutely, and I think we've not seen the most out of this roster either yet. I think that's the thing to remember. This is part of a much bigger story that's going to go on here.
I'm so excited to see how they play on Friday against their opponents as well. I believe it's Fnatic first and then Guts on Playday 6. There's lots to look forward to, but there's also a lot to talk about, which is why after a quick break, our analysts will break this one down for you. Back in a few.